Hello! Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I am Dan Alstrand, in for Todd today, who won't be back tomorrow. He's got a couple of things to take care of, but he'll be back in the big chair tomorrow, so I know you'll look forward to that. Before we go any further and into what's going on today, I'd like to send a big thanks out to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass, doing what she does every day, makes this show move forward, and when the parts change, when we roll one chair in out for the other, it can be a monumental task, so to speak, and I am extremely appreciative of the work that she does. It is a sunny but cool day. Somebody said it yesterday, and I don't even want to admit it, but after all of that heat that we've had, and I'm not suggesting that it's over yet, but that we've experienced through July and into August, these last couple of mornings, getting up and driving into the radio station at some crazy hour like 4 a.m., the heat has come on in my vehicle. I have internal temperature sensor that you set, kind of just set. It's not the old school where you just turn the knob yourself. It does it all itself, and it has a temperature that it lives on. And the last 2 mornings, the heaters have come on. Now, I don't want to say the F word, and I know many of you don't want to say the F word, particularly the kids that are looking at back to school right around the corner. But it's been chilly. It's actually been kind of nice. I know that many of us have been suffering through all of this dry weather and lack of rain, and and the wildfire situation well documented in the province. But it's maybe just because we're so used to those 18, 20 degree nights that these 10 and 11 and 12 probably where it should be. It just feels cold, doesn't it? Anyway, speaking of the weather, Aaron, latest update on that storm, no landfall in Nova Scotia. Thank goodness. We don't need that right now. But the shifting winds that will happen when that storm rolls up the coast, it's going to stay a long way off of our land, and normally this wouldn't be much of an issue. I mean, we see this quite frequently. But this time around, because of the magnitude of that storm, it was a Category 5 at one point, it's going to create some shifting winds, and I know the folks that are fighting that big forest fire out in West Dalhousie and the Long Lake fire structure there are not looking for that any kind of wind, because what happens with fire and wind, it moves it forward. Also, those that may be venturing into the waters of the Atlantic, not recommended on Friday and into Saturday with these waves that are supposed to come in. And these rip currents. These rip currents can be just extremely powerful, and they can pull you out to sea in about a blink of an eye. So I would suggest that if you're going to head into the water, maybe today or maybe Sunday, Monday, somewhere around there, once this latest storm is passed. But we will see some surf, and we will see some rip currents from Aaron. HRM news today. It just broke about a half an hour ago that the city is going to close the Cogswell encampment. That's the one down by Spring Garden Road. There was some concern about that encampment because it was infringing on some rules that the HRM had put out with regards to where these encampment sites can be located, and that was because they've opened an elderly care facility less than 50 meters away from that site, which suddenly makes it not compliant to the rules anymore. So HRM announcing today that by the end of September, they will close that encampment site, saying there are plenty of spaces available for people that are living there within the provincial shelter system that has been built here, and or they can move to another designated site. So this is the latest in a string of sites that have been closed, and I'm curious as to your thoughts on it. There are some out there that suggest when we close the site, people just kind of move from one to the other. It's not really accomplishing anything. It's more of a PR win than anything else. Might be something you want to talk about when we open up the phone lines at 12 o'clock today. Also, HRM Council, and I'm very curious to your thoughts on this, and maybe it's just me, but I've been watching council meetings as of late when they come out. They're live on streams. YouTube streams one, and I think there's another source that you can use. Have you tried to watch them live? It's very difficult. And it's not difficult to find. It's there, but it's very difficult because lately HRM Council has had several hours of in-camera meetings as part of these things. In-camera, of course, is behind closed doors. They're in private. Now, I understand the need to discuss matters in camera and in private, contracts, personnel issues, but there was an item on the agenda yesterday. It was listed as intergovernmental affairs. Now, they don't really tell you what it is because it's in camera and we're not supposed to know, right? So, and it was dealt with behind closed doors. Now, one can only surmise what it was because we don't know what it was. But with the recent announcement from the province that they rejected the regional plan, I can assume that was probably part of the discussion. Again, I don't know for sure, but I can assume. I'm not sure if that was the case, but if it was, I would submit that should be a public debate. It's dealing with another level of government, right? In open session. Councillor Sam Austin said when they came back in open session about that yesterday that the province may have, and I think I'm quoting here, thrown the baby out with the bathwater and threw the whole plan out because of setbacks over water courses and the EV mandates. Might be something else you want to discuss during the open hour today. So lots going on. Glad you're with us. Hope you can spend a few minutes with us as we move through Wednesday and the midweek day as we look towards another week in the books. We're getting closer to that long weekend, aren't we? Anyway, some political news this week, of course. I know Todd was talking about it yesterday, and that was the big by-election win out west for the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, that being Pierre Poilievre, who won quite handily in the riding of Crowfoot out there in the rural areas of Alberta. Some interesting comments from Mr. Poilievre with regards to campaigning, a city person campaigning out in the west. He said something along the lines of that somebody just walked up to him he didn't know in a parking lot in rural Alberta offering him a big bag of beef jerky. He said, that doesn't happen in the city. And he's probably right. Anyway, what does all this mean? When we have questions of a political nature, we go to our most favorite political scientist, and that is Lori Turnbull, who joins me on the phone this morning. Lori, how are you?
Good morning.
I guess big bags of beef jerky don't get passed out in city campaigns, do they?
I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, that's a new one.
Nothing surprises me, but no, haven't heard that one before.
So we've seen, Lori, a little bit more of a and I'm putting quotations around this, a quiet Pierre Poilievre, at least nationally, during this latest by-election. But with that huge win, 80% of the vote in his back pocket, do you think that will get the old Pierre back, the one that we saw during the campaign, or is he going to maybe take a different tact as he moves back to Ottawa?
I think that he has to take a different tack. I just don't see how he can go on the way he's gone on and act like he's still in some kind of battle with Justin Trudeau when the world has shifted around him. I mean, Prime Minister Carney is not Justin Trudeau. He's not going to be able to go in there and call the Prime Minister a wacko and, you know, do the things that he did before and expect to have some kind of result from it. And it just seemed to me that Trudeau and Poilievre really kind of fed off of one another. They were very similar. Their dynamic was very personal. And I think, the Prime Minister has shown this kind of respect for Poilievre, right? Like he's congratulating him on his win and he's setting a tone of civility. And I think if Poilievre doesn't match it, he's going to look offside. But what will that look like, right? Like, I think there are questions of authenticity. You know, for example, if we know him as this kind of attack dog style and he comes in and acts differently, he's going to have to be very careful. But he's done image shifting before. When he became leader, he did that whole makeover a couple of years ago where he lost the glasses, went to he's always gone to the gym apparently, but he got all buffed up and all that. And, that seems to have worked for him. So I don't put it past people to kind of remake their image when they have to, but I just don't think he can go the way he's been going.
It's difficult though, because like that attack dog brand has been Pierre Poilievre most of his career, right?
Oh yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons that he became known to people. That's one of the reasons why he was, his name was considered even, back in like 2 leadership conventions before he actually ran. when Andrew Scheer won, when Aaron O'Toole won, like Pierre Poilievre's name was definitely in the mix because he has effect at what he does, right? Like when you look at him going at, but especially Trudeau, when he would go at Trudeau in committee, like if you can remember back to the We Charity scandal and him holding the Prime Minister to account at a virtual committee meeting about whether Trudeau knew what happened and what his involvement was and all that. Those are the moments, I think, where Poilievre seems to be very effective. But that is not the role of the Prime Minister. I think the key for Poilievre, and I have to think this is his kind of last chance, given everything, is to show that he's prime ministerial. And that is not going to be a threshold that's met just because people would prefer him over Justin Trudeau, because that was the circumstance before, and that's different now. That doesn't matter now.
During the general election, Mr. Poilievre, of course, losing his seat in the riding of Carleton that he'd been elected, I think, 7 times in, and some blaming the longest ballot protest for kind of splitting up the vote there. We saw the same thing here in this most recent by-election this week. There were well over 200 candidates on the ballot. Mr. Poilievre got 80% of the vote. Do you think, put an end to this longest ballot protest kind of vote, or do you think that because they were successful in the general election, we'll see it again?
First of all, I don't think that the longest ballot stuff had anything to do with Pierre Poilievre losing, because most of those candidates are getting 0 votes or 1
Right.
vote, maybe 5. And even if they got something like 30, it doesn't matter, right? That was not the reason why he lost. There isn't really vote splitting. It's just the population of a ballot by unserious candidates. He lost to Bruce Vanjoy, period, who had been working that riding for 2 years as the Liberal candidate and who managed to resonate with voters and I think really dig into the issues and the worries that voters had and the frustrations they had with Pierre Poilievre, particularly given his participation in the Freedom Convoy, which that's a hard card to play in Ottawa. Yep. It's one thing if people weren't there, but people were having to find alternative ways to go to work. You couldn't go to work some of the time. You couldn't get into shops you wanted to go to. People who live in his riding were affected by that personally. And so I think that was difficult for him. Anyway, I don't think the longest ballot committee is going to shut up. No, I don't. I think that they've got, as far as I know, they're actually referring to the Battle of River Crowfoot by-election as a kind of a victory. I think that the concerns that they have in terms of wanting a different electoral system, wanting to push politicians on being the ones to change the rules that govern them and that kind of alleged conflict of interest that exists there, they're not going to, shut up about that anytime soon. I think that they want to keep going. But it's Elections Canada's response in terms of making this write-in ballot. So you're not going to have the longest ballot. It's actually going to be the shortest ballot where people will come in and write the name of the candidate they want. So I think Elections Canada has a ready-made response. So if anything, the longest ballot committee is going to have to find a different tactic because Elections Canada is not going to put up with that anymore.
Mr. Poilievre has at least one more hurdle to sort of cross before he gets the keys to the car again, and that is a leadership review within the Conservative Party. With this dominating win in Alberta, does that weigh into it, or was he going to win it anyway, or is his leadership in trouble? What do you think is going to happen at that convention?
Okay, so as far as I understand, the convention is going to be in person only, and it's in Calgary in January. And I think chances are the room will be filled with people who support Mr. Poilievre, and there's not going to be. I don't think he has anything to worry about in that room in that moment. I think the larger worry is going to be whether he's competitive, whether he can show himself to be a real alternative to Mark Carney, and honestly, whether he can show himself to be a real alternative to somebody like Doug Ford. I don't think just because Ford isn't directly challenging his leadership doesn't mean that he won't in the future, and it doesn't mean that Ford can't occupy a really compelling space within the Conservative movement that has the effect of undermining Pierre Poilievre's leadership. Ford is and obviously a progressive conservative politician who's extremely successful, but he's palling around with Mark Carney. He was up to, like when the by-election was going on Monday, Ford was in Ottawa meeting with Carney. And so it just seems to me there are different brands of conservatism out there. There are different ideas, different possible leaders about how to take the party forward. And even if he wins the leadership race, I don't think he's out of the woods. Their leadership review, I don't think he's out of the woods.
Very quickly, Lori, before I let you go, news today that Elizabeth May is stepping away from the leadership of the Green Party. Your thoughts on what you think her legacy is going to be and the future of the Green Party when Elizabeth is no longer in the picture?
Honestly, I think her legacy will be one of a serious parliamentarian. Like for a long time, obviously she wasn't in a position to form a government. She wasn't in a position even to form an official political party. She fought really hard to get into the House of Commons. For a long time, she didn't have a seat. And once she got in there, I think for most of the time, she came across as somebody who was reasonable, who was committed to a civil outcome, who showed respect to people who were her competitors. A lot of people, kind of back in the day, like 2011, that kind of thing, would have ranked her debate performance, for example, as higher than the other leaders, even though she wasn't going to win and we knew it. There was a sense that she was bringing a real policy knowledge and a serious competitiveness to the conversation. It's the Green Party, at the risk of sounding like a jerk. I'm not sure what the future is. It seems to have always been the party of Elizabeth May. And I know other MPs have been elected a couple of times, but it just seemed even when they tried to pivot from her leadership, it didn't get off the ground. And so I don't know. I don't know what happens to them now. It just doesn't seem like a viable political party to me.
Lori, as always, appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, too.
That is Lori Turnbull from Dalhousie University, political scientist. Elizabeth May announcing, last night that she is going to step aside. She's done that before and then came back as a co-leader during the last election campaign after the Anna May Paul fiasco, and it will be very interesting to see what happens with the Green Party once Elizabeth May is no longer there. Smoking rates lung cancer rates within those that don't smoke are on the rise. We'll explore when we come back. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. And welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand in for Todd today. Very quickly before we get to our next guest, the newsroom just let me know that it is now official. Dalhousie University has locked out members of its faculty association as of 9:30 this morning. In a notice that was issued to students on Monday, the university said it would issue this notice of intention to lock out members as of this morning if a deal wasn't reached. So obviously, because it has happened, a deal hasn't reached. The Faculty Association has said that the lockout would be a first for Canada's research-intensive universities, calls the whole thing reckless by the board and jeopardizing the fall term. We'll have more on that coming up in the news with Blake at the bottom of the hour. So I can imagine there will be some nervous Dalhousie students who are on their way or soon to be on their way back to Halifax if the fall semester is going to move forward or not. Labor situation. It just seems it's labor story after labor story this summer. This story kind of caught my eye. It was on our website, halifax.citynews.ca. It says, although smoking remains the leading risk factor for lung cancer, the Canadian Cancer Society estimating now about a quarter of lung cancer cases that they're finding are happening within non-smokers. The Director of Person-Centered Care and Programs with the Lung Health Foundation is Shirley Quach, and Shirley joins us on the phone. Shirley, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing today, Dan?
I am well. That is a bit spooky to me, considering that, for years we've been working to try and get people off of the cigarettes and such to try and cut down on this number. And now we're seeing cancer cases rise in non-smokers. Is there a reason why? Do we know?
Yeah, so one of the things I really want to start off to emphasize is that anyone can develop lung cancer, but there are some people who have greater risk than others. And like you've mentioned, smoking is one of the huge risk factor, but that's really not the only one. So there are a couple of different other risk factors that we can talk about. So for example, radon gas is one of the possible risk factor. So it's a naturally occurring radioactive gas that has no smell, taste, or color, and it does actually accumulate in homes and buildings over time. Another factor could be air pollution. So air quality is another one, right? So fine particulate matter from traffic, industry, and as we've seen over the last couple of years, wildfire smoke. Occupational exposures such as asbestos, diesel exhaust, arsenic, certain metals. Higher in some industries, such as mining, construction, and manufacturing, have regular exposure to these particles, and that could be a risk factor. Secondhand smoke is another risk factor. And then there's also like family history. So those people have a risk factor for possible abnormal cell growth and changes in their DNA, which can have an increased risk for lung cancer, even without smoking.
You mentioned wildfire risk, and that's obviously very timely considering the situation not only here in Nova Scotia, but right across the country. Very difficult to protect yourself against that, considering it just kind of, wafts in and it wafts out. Is there an approach other than, locking yourself inside your house and closing all your windows that you can do to try and protect yourself from this risk from smoke?
Yeah, so it's very important to reduce your time and exposure to wildfire smoke and the particulates. So as you've mentioned, staying indoors whenever it's possible, but also investing in like an air purifier, using a mask or N95 when you go outside, because those are very important. And what they do is reduce the amount of concentration of these particulates that you inhale to breathe in.
Right. So it kind of makes sense, right? If you get those particulates out of the air, then it lowers your risk for developing lung cancer down the line.
Yeah, exactly.
Is this increase in the occurrence of lung cancer in people that don't smoke, is it a concern? Because we, as I mentioned off the preamble, we focus pretty hard on getting people to quit smoking, and now a lot of these environmental things are really out of our control.
Yeah, so I think regarding your comment about the increase, I think we just have to be mindful that in all the confirmed cases of lung cancer, we estimate that up to 1 in 4, so as you mentioned, a quarter, 25%, have lung cancer without a smoking history. So 1 in 4 is a lot. We're talking about thousands of cases. But again, this is a range, right? So in other words, up to 25. So from all cancer cases, so we can see individuals that have lung cancer without smoking, and that can be from 10% upwards towards 25%, and that percentage will change across different areas and also different periods of time.
Shirley, I would imagine that lung cancer is prevention and catching things early is as important as prevention, and this should be a message to those that just because you're not a smoker, you should probably have regular visits with your doctor in order to make sure that you're clear of this, or B, if you do, you can catch it early.
Yes, exactly. So again, speaking to those risk factors that we discussed, it's very important to be aware of what those risk factors are and really having those conversations with your healthcare providers, your family physician, and if you need to be referred to like a cancer center or a thoracic surgeon, they can definitely give you more information on that. And that's why we really need to think about, for example, the lung cancer screening programs. I know in Halifax, Nova Scotia, there is established formal programs for lung cancer screening.
Shirley, we're out of time. I appreciate yours.
Thank you so much.
That is Shirley Quach. She is the Director of Person-Centered Care Programs with the Lung Health Foundation. Have you noticed the trees in HRM as of late? Does it not feel like we're in the middle of September as opposed to the middle of August with regards to the color on some of them? My neighborhood looks like fall. What is going on with the trees? We'll figure it out when we come back from the news. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. It's we're into the dog days of summer, as they would say, and we are getting closer and closer to that long weekend that marks the quote unquote unofficial end of summer as the kids get ready to go back to school. And I've already been chastised for using the F word in the last segment, so I won't say fall again, but I did. And we are getting used to that traditional change of the foliage in and around HRM, but I got to tell you, for the last few weeks, I've been walking around my neighborhood, and it's happening. And it's happening early, in my opinion. And I wonder why. So we're going to head down the street from the station here and over to our friends at Halifax Seed, and that's where we find Emily Tregunno this morning. Emily, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Dan. How are you?
I'm well. What is going on with my trees? How come they're turning color? The maple trees are turning red. The birches are turning yellow. What's going on?
It's a little jarring when you do think it's summer and it's August and trees are dropping their leaves. Absolutely. So this is natural. This is a common response to the drought and the heat wave that we've been having.
Right.
So, as the drought continues on, trees are not able to uptake enough water. Leaves will also release some of the water through transpiration. So a natural response to an extended period of drought like we're experiencing here in Nova Scotia, these trees are dropping their leaves to help conserve the water and nutrients that their trunks and roots have. So well, it's not pretty to look outside and see your leaves dropping in August. This is natural, and they're doing it to protect themselves so they can survive.
Right, so it's a defense mechanism. The tree's just trying to conserve what it has left.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, the wild trees we really can't do much about. I was taking pictures during the Bears Lake fire last week, and I was this past weekend I was going over them just to see if I got any good ones, which I didn't, but I tried. And it looked like I was taking them in September. It's really bad.
We haven't had rain since June, I believe. I know we had a little bit over the weekend, but right. That's not enough for trees to survive, and especially the trees that we have here. So if you do have some trees on your property, especially if it's a new tree, if it's a small tree, and if you're able to water, not all of us are able to water or should be watering.
Right.
So if you have a rain barrel that you've collected water in, maybe this is a good use of the water you have collected. You can certainly go out, water the tree, and water at the drip line. So the drip line is where the leaves come out, kind of the diameter of the tree.
Okay.
The roots and the end of the roots are going to be under those leaves and not right at the trunk.
Okay, so they spread out from the trunk.
Absolutely. So my suggestion is to water the drip line if you can. And you could also use something like mulch. So mulching around the base of a tree can also help to retain some moisture in the soil.
Emily, we know that the fall is a reasonably good time to maybe think about putting new trees in with the conditions that we're in now, unless we get some significant rain. Are you recommending against putting new trees in until maybe the spring?
If the drought is going to continue, you may want to consider waiting until the spring. At this point, I believe we're starting to get some rain next week.
Right.
So hopefully we will be back to some normal weather patterns in the fall.
And along the same lines as the trees, as we're speaking about our yards, I'm looking at my flower beds, and I would imagine people's gardens are pretty parched. Is it? I mean, with the dry conditions, are they beyond repair now?
I'm going to say it's going to depend on the plant,
right,
and some other environmental conditions. So I would say my perennial gardens that still get a lot of shade during the day, they're holding their own. They're going to be just fine. Some of my annuals that I haven't been watering at all, they're not happy, and they're not going to come back.
Right.
And they wouldn't. This would be the time of year, well, maybe more in 4 to 6 weeks, that they would be wrapping up their life cycle anyway. I believe that most perennials will be able to come back next year. I believe, it is natural, especially for grass, to go into a dormancy period in the heat of the summer. I think grass, for the most part, can come back. I think it's going to be quite important to make sure when we do start to get rain that you are able to add some gentle nutrients to the soils. If you're going to fertilize, I would look at something that is either organic or has a slow release component to it, just so we're not shocking the roots and causing the plants more stress.
Right. And I was going to ask a question about the grass because the lawns in my neighborhood they're not just brown, they're crunchy. And we're used to brown lawns. We see them in the spring. Is there anything that we should do, or do we just have to wait for Mother Nature to do her thing to get them back to where they should be?
At this point, we do need some cooler temperatures, as much as we don't want to say it, and we do need rain. I think in Nova Scotia right now, I think all Nova Scotians can agree that we are welcoming all of the rain that we can get.
You bet.
So I'm optimistic that lawns and gardens will look just fine if we have some normal weather patterns coming up in the next few weeks.
So the bottom line is with our trees, Emily, is to they're going to do what they're going to do. They may lose their leaves. It looks pretty bad in August, but they're probably going to be all right next year.
I think now I can't say for sure because they are a plant, but I believe that right now this is a natural response that the trees are doing, and that natural response is a healthy response, so they should be fine next spring.
Let's keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Emily, appreciate your time. I know you're busy.
No problem. Take care. Thanks for having me.
That is Emily Tregunno from Halifax Seed. It's natural, everyone, but it's scary, isn't it? I went for a walk on the weekend, and there's my neighborhood is full of there's lots of maple trees, and I was pulling red maple leaves off the ground. I wasn't in the woods; I was on the sidewalk. That were as red as a Canadian flag, and it's just it's shocking not only to the tree system but to mine too, because we're not supposed to see that until closer to October. Well, Maple's a little earlier, but you get my point. It's happening everywhere. At least where I've been in HRM. Maybe you have a different experience, but that's the way it looks in my neighborhood and the places that I visited. So it's a natural response. The trees are likely going to be okay, but we can do our part. I know we're not supposed to water, and I know many of you are trying to follow the voluntary water restrictions. I know we are, and it's watering probably isn't on that list, but any water that you can collect from the rain, that's the stuff that's free, that's falling out of the sky. Hopefully, it probably will help. And for those of you with annuals and gardens with lovely tomatoes, and if Nikki's listening, I know she's laughing right now. It's boy, I feel for you. I really do, because you put all that time and effort into those and money into those gardens, and Mother Nature always wins. It's just the way that it is. We are going to stop. We're going to take another break. When we come back, I came across a story a couple of days ago in Saltwire, which is an interesting concept. It really is an interesting concept about renting and finding different ways to make it all work. And I'm going to share a story that I had with you as well. Hope you can stick around. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. Hope you're having a fantastic day. I am Dan Alstrand, and in the studio today, we're very pleased to welcome Dylan Ward, who is the Director of Development for a group called Rooted.
Yes.
And we're very thankful that you're in here today. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
I guess, Dylan, let's set the table. Tell me a little bit about what Rooted is.
Yeah, so Rooted is a new name for an organization that's been around in Dartmouth for many years, about 40. We just rebranded last fall to Rooted to really speak to our mission of expanding across the province. But Rooted, previously Dartmouth nonprofit in short, is a developer, owner, and operator of mixed income affordable housing across Nova Scotia. So in my role, it's really management of the active acquisition and development pipeline. But I think today we're talking more on the acquisition side,
Right.
where we found a lot of success in, and we've seen a lot of our growth. Nearly 96% of our growth is acquisition. So we're just going to keep that rolling into small and big deals.
So when you're talking about acquisition, what is it that you're acquiring?
Yeah, so I think what prompted this piece is a smaller acquisition. So this is a sixplex that we're talking about today in Spryfield. But just earlier this year, we were the first nonprofit group to tap into the new Community Housing Capital Fund through the province. And so in that case, we were looking at much larger, I think around 84 units across two multi-res projects. Mm-hmm. In this case, we're looking at something smaller because it has so much more value from a strategic play standpoint. Mm-hmm. And so acquisition really means keeping it within the community housing sector, so taking it from the private sector, who has typically and historically been the landlords for a lot of people who have lower incomes. And so that's really our mission, is to provide safe and affordable housing to groups who are low to moderate income.
So you go out into the community, you find a rental property that maybe that the landlord or whomever owns it wants to unload. You purchase it and then you administer it. Am I correct?
Yeah, that's right. So we call it a program. It's not really a program in the sense that we do programming. Typically, we do income testing as a means testing to see how we prioritize tenants. In the case of acquisitions, all of these buildings are fully occupied. So there is a process for that, obviously honoring and respecting the tenancies that are in place and working with tenants to offer them other options if there are other options that meet their needs better. But that's sort of the gist of it. We are a property management company too, all nonprofit. So we do really have the best in mind for the tenants.
Tell me a little bit about this Spryfield project that we saw in the news earlier this week. That was at least to me, a bit of a unique thing.
Yeah, so that's an opportunity that came through domino effect from their other acquisition earlier this year. Just through word of mouth, that's how the real estate industry seems to work, is just getting your name out there, and that's part of the reason why we want to do more pieces like this. So that opportunity, it's a sixplex in Spryfields. It's on Old Sambro. We haven't specifically provided the address just because we haven't yet closed on the deal. Yep. But that's a scenario where the seller is interested in working with a nonprofit first and foremost before they were to go to the private market. There's a number of reasons why sellers might do that. The first one is social outcomes. So they see a group like ours and they really have sort of their heartstrings attached to the tenants. In this case, this seller has been with the tenants for 15 years, or with the property rather for 15 years. And so they do want to see a landlord that's going to treat those tenants right and not do things that are sort of like seedy practices that we do know of in the industry, like rent evictions. That's really one of the main pieces for why this resource has been provided to our sector and why we're looking to acquire and retain that under sort of the public good. The other piece is there's been a rise in operating costs for landlords. So that's a real challenge that they're up against, and there's only so many tools with things like rent cap. There has been experiences where operating budget has just exceeded what you can charge in rent through the years. And so that's another opportunity for us to come in and provide proper value to those sellers who are maybe looking to get out of the property while also maintaining the affordable rents. And oftentimes we're doing a value add too. When you hear value add in the private sector, it's kind of a loose way of saying we're going to put lipstick on a pig and then charge you more rent. In our case, that's not what we're looking to do. That's not our end goal. We're really looking to improve livability and invest in things that have multiple benefits. Energy efficiency is a big one that we focus in on and that we've had success with partners like Efficiency Nova Scotia and provincial programming. where we can get the utilities down, and that serves our organization, helps kind of reduce costs, and we roll those into our growth through acquisition and new development, which is also a focus of ours.
What does it mean for the tenants that are in the building? Is it mean that they are secure in knowing that they're not going to get rent evicted, or they're not going to see an exceedingly huge increase if that cap or when that cap ever comes off? Is that what you sort of tell them when you take these buildings over? It's like, look, we're gonna protect you, kind of deal.
Yeah, that's the underlying sentiment that we're trying to get to tenants through comms. I think because we have a new name, it's not obvious that we are a nonprofit right away. And so we did experience that a bit with the Gaston Road properties in Dartmouth that we closed on, where tenants were like, who are you? You're the third landlord that we've had in the last 10 years. You're going to be doing those CD practices and trying to either get us out or raise our rents or something in between. And so I think we're stepping up our comms a little bit more and trying to provide that right away in the tenant package, understanding who we are. And the other piece is the mixed income model too. So for acquisitions, obviously honoring the tenancies, but for development, that is something that we have to be careful in communicating, because we do rely on typically half of new development projects being what we call near market. And so just because we're an affordable housing developer doesn't mean that we can provide deeply affordable rents to everyone who has tenancy with us. And so there's means testing. There's a number of ways that we're trying to hone in on how we prioritize that. But that's the general gist, is that you're secured under a nonprofit who really has the best in mind for you as a tenant.
As opposed to trying to wring every dollar out of the building.
Yeah, that's it.
Means testing, you mentioned that a couple times. Is that you will base somebody's a new tenant's rent on their income? Is that how that works?
Yeah, so the programs that we tap into from the province or CMHC usually have some sort of initial means testing, and we're exploring ways to make sure that our limited resources as a sector are well distributed and are going to people who need it most. Obviously, in best case scenario or in a perfect world, everyone shouldn't have housing access, but because of the challenge that we're under, we have to be smart with our resourcing, and so there's some scenarios where we've implemented policies that have been vetted by the province and other funding partners, but whereby we look at resourcing maybe a 4-bedroom house that once was provided to a family of 4 or 5 who are no longer, they're maybe empty nesters, or there's one person living in that house. Personally, I feel that's not a good sort of resource alignment, and so we're working with those tenants to look at other opportunities within our portfolio, especially if they're still making the same sort of level of income. So there's over income and there's also over housed, and those are typically things that the public housing sector doesn't have as an acute measure or way of like mitigating. And so we're trying to make that obviously a fair process, but something that we offer as a benefit to working with community housing and nonprofit, as opposed to the bureaucracy of public housing.
What's the demand like from people wanting to take part in this program, both from a real estate perspective and from a tenant perspective?
The appetite? Yeah. I mean, like I said, the buildings are completely, there's no vacancy that we're seeing, or maybe one or two units in like a 50 plus unit building. There's appetite. There's definitely more calls that we're getting on a daily basis, and people trying to get on our wait list, which we encourage if you check those boxes in terms of eligibility. The market side, we're also having people interested in just having a landlord that they can trust, and maybe they can pay a bit more towards those near market rents. So yeah, it's definitely picking up. We're seeing that out in the community, and we're going to be seeing that too as we branch out beyond HRM even with our new hub planned for Truro coming this fall.
Dylan, we're just about out of time. If somebody wants to learn more about Rooted and how they can be involved in it, what's the best way to do that?
Probably our social media. I think our handle is rooted_, _communities.
Right.
Or probably just best our website, rooted.ca.
And all the information's there, and people can go from there.
Yep, there's eligibility criteria,
Right.
and if there is any questions, you can feel free to reach out over phone.
Dylan, appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you very much.
That is Dylan Ward, Director of Development for Rooted. We're going to stop down, take a break. On the other side of it, Dr. John Gillis is here. It's time for House Calls. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It is Wednesday. It is 11 o'clock, and that means it's now time for us to switch gears a little bit and welcome into the program to take your calls for the next hour, the good doctor, Dr. John Gillis. Dr. Gillis, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are things?
Not too bad. Not too bad. It's a little bit cooler this week, which I imagine would be good for those who have been suffering through this heat.
Yeah, it was quite crazy. I was both here. I was in Newfoundland last week as well, and it was like a desert over there. It was wild.
Dr. John, we were talking earlier in the show today. I don't know if you caught it about cancer rates, lung cancer rates in non-smokers on the rise across country, and there's a bevy, obviously, of reasons why. But one of the concerns these days is that of wildfire smoke, and we're kind of intimately familiar with that here in HRM and across Nova Scotia these days. What do you recommend to people that are dealing with bad air from all these fires?
Yeah, I mean it's a tough one. If you're in an area where you're exposed to a lot of smoke, wearing an N95 mask can.
John, are you there? Vanessa, I think we've lost Dr. Gillis.
Sorry about that.
Oh, there he is. He's back. We got him. Good. Sorry, you were saying?
I'm just saying it's hard to hide from the air. So, I mean, you can wear a mask. That may help.
Right.
And, if there's a particularly bad, obviously a fire in your area, you're going to want to, get out of that area as quickly as you can. And that's, it's tough for people that don't want to leave home. And hopefully we can find ways to keep these under control and keep them from happening. And, people will do what they're supposed to do and not do stupid things and cause fires.
Right. And let's hope that, we get some rain and we can put this behind us for another season.
Absolutely.
902-405-6000 is the number, 902-405-6000, or if you like, 1-877-801-8255 is the toll-free number. If you have a medical-related question for Dr. John Gillis, this is your opportunity. Lines are open, so you'll get in fairly quickly, and then you can get on with your question and on with your day. Dr. John, I know we've talked about Ozempic to death on this program for the last year or so or more. But some news this week about another potential use for that drug in dealing with people that have kidney deterioration because of diabetes. Have you seen or read about this, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I saw something about it. I must say I don't know a whole lot about it, but we often see stuff like this, as the research kind of progresses and they start to look at the numbers, it makes sense if it's improving diabetic control and or there's a direct, benefit from the Ozempic, and, the research is evolving. The other thing that has been interesting is some emerging research with these drugs in people with alcohol use disorder, people who, drink too much. And, interestingly, I've had a few clients that I've seen, a few patients I've seen that have told me, they're not on it for that purpose. But, one guy told me, I just drink a lot of wine, but now I don't want to drink any. Like I might have one glass of my dinner and I just don't want it. And it seems to have a curbing influence there as well, which is interesting. And again, may not be, a first-line treatment, but, again, with any drug, as they look at the effects across a large group of people, they sometimes see positives, sometimes see negatives. I mean, if we look at, drugs like, minoxidil, Rogaine, they were developed for other purposes, and people in the trials were having side effects, one of which was hair growth. So that wasn't the original purpose, but it evolved into something else. And, my view of Ozempic has shifted a little bit. I still think for some people it's too much the easy answer, but I've seen a number of people who have really done their best to lose weight with diet and exercise and just haven't been able to, break the cycle, who have done very well with it. Now, there are people who have side effects from it, and it's not for everybody, but, the emerging research is definitely interesting.
Is this common, Dr. John, when we get a new drug or a new family of drugs on the market and they become more widely used, that we start to learn more? Or start to see more, maybe, and the side effects probably not the right word, but additional uses to that drug than what it was originally intended?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So, I mean, the way these things work is, drugs go through trials. They look at benefit for the purpose, but they also look at a whole host of other side effects or potential, good or bad effects. And the data gets tracked, and, you look at drug X, and, let's say it's for blood pressure, and you look at the 10,000 patients, it helped their blood pressure 10%, but in 10% of them, their mood got drastically worse, and, it affected them. So, the drug may not be worth it. So it's sort of the process that brings these things out.
This drug, as I understand it, was originally designed to help control type 2 diabetes, right?
That's right. And it's good for that. And, I think it became a craze to some degree. It's also very expensive.
Right.
I mean, again, doing some research on it a little bit myself recently for some patients, you're talking $400 or $500 a month, I think, if you don't have coverage. And it's become a real cash cow for the drug companies and for, businesses that are selling it, setting people up with it. And again, for some people, it's been very positive, but it ain't cheap.
That's for sure. 902-405-6000 is the number, 902-405-6000. I got an email, Dr. John, from a listener that said he was listening to our conversation about the fires and the smoke and saw their stress level increase a whole bunch on Tuesday when we saw that fire out at Bears Lake. I guess this person lived very close to where that fire was happening, and said they're not sure if it's just stress or if it was anxiety, and is curious to know what the difference between the two is.
I don't know what that means. Sorry.
Okay. Is there a difference between stress and anxiety, or are they the same thing?
Well, stress is the application of something, a condition, something that happens, and anxiety is a response to it.
Okay. So
how you feel, I guess, is what I would say.
So it's part and parcel. One is the other.
One leads to the other. Right.
Any advice for people that tend to get stressed out when things like out of the ordinary, like that fire, happen?
That's a big question, my friend. How long do we have?
All day. Go wild.
Okay. Yeah. Don't watch the Leafs, and
Yeah, that's the
something
level
that relaxes you.
It is.
Yeah.
Stress is. I mean, all kidding aside, stress and anxiety can be debilitating, right?
Absolutely, but everybody's different. Stresses one person out, doesn't do anything to somebody else, and it's a matter of recognizing your stress and learning how to deal with it. Some people deal with it well, some people deal with it poorly.
Is it best to get professional help when it comes to something along those lines, or is there is there any home remedy to it?
It all depends on what's happening. I mean, if something is causing you anxiety, remove the cause is the most obvious thing. Some people have a metabolic, condition where, they're unusually susceptible to being anxious or depressed by things that wouldn't depress most people. And in some cases, those people need treatment or medical, medication or counseling. And it's a matter of finding, the right balance.
902-405-6000 is the number. 902-405-6000 is the number. Dr. John Gillis will be here. We're going to take a break. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We are back in minutes. All All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. It's House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis. He's here to answer your medical-related questions. If you have a question, perfect opportunity. Lines are wide open right now. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. You can get in real quick and get your question answered. Dr. John, you got another email question here from somebody who said that their wife has been diagnosed with bowel, and I'm going to try and pronounce this right, endometriosis. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
They say that the doctors recommended hormone therapy, but this writer is asking if there are any other options. I guess maybe you can educate me and tell me what that is, what endometriosis is.
Yeah, basically it's a condition where the stuff that the tissue that normally is inside a woman's uterus can grow elsewhere and cause inflammation and pain. Hormones can help control that, depending on where it is. Sometimes, surgical, removal of areas can help. Sometimes removal of the areas, like actual surgical removal of the areas where the problem is a solution. So it's a combination of those two things, and again, usually, guided by your healthcare professional who knows the patient and what their best option is.
This guy said that hormone therapy is that they want her to stay on birth control pills. Is that a common prescription?
It is, yeah. I mean, the birth control pills, regulate ovulation and that sort of thing, but they also, obviously regulate menstrual cycles, and which is related to what the tissue in the uterus does and helps keep it under control.
902-405-6000 is the number. Let's go to the phones, Dr. John. We welcome Stan to the program. Stan, how are you?
I'm doing fine today. Thanks, guys. Thanks for taking the call, and
Sure.
Thanks, John, for doing this show. I appreciate everybody in the healthcare system. This isn't a complaint, but I'm suffering at times. I've been getting, I have excruciating headaches periodically, and I'm going through a bad cycle right now. I'm not having one as I speak, but over the last week, I've been getting them 4, 5, 6 times a day, and they last about 20, 30 minutes. I have seen a neurologist because these aren't new to me. This has started probably 8 years ago or so, and he hasn't fully diagnosed it. He said it's one of two things: cluster headaches or occipital neuralgia. Anyway, but he said he wants to see me when I go through an episode to figure it out. And when I'm going through an episode at its peak, I'm not in any position to get to his office. But my wife has done some videotaping to show him how I look, how my facial features change and things like that. I've been trying to reach out to him a lot over the last couple of years, and his office is either closed or they don't get back to me. I think he's semi-retired. And when I'm in there, he's good. It's just impossible to get in there. So I don't have anything to treat this, and I've not gone to the emergency yet. And if I go to the emergency, it'll be because I'm capable of it. I'm not suffering significantly to get there. So the emergency isn't going to see me at my worst. And I'm just wondering how I can handle this in order to get something. I will just add one other thing. My family doctor sent a referral to a pain clinic about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and they called me last May, and they said it's May. So I'm not really sure at this point how to treat it. And it dramatically affects my quality of life. Any suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the first thing is you don't need a neurologist to get something to treat headaches. I mean, is your family doctor not giving you anything?
No, he isn't. He hasn't prescribed anything. He's referred to Dr. King, my neurologist. Apologies for mentioning his name, but no, he hasn't prescribed anything.
Yeah, well, look, neurology is very difficult right now. I think you're right. Dr. King may be semi-retired, and he, does a lot of workers' comp and medical legal work, I think. So it's very tough to get into anybody. But like, there is a baseline list of medications, from Tylenol through anti-inflammatories through triptan medications for migraines. That can help different types of headaches. And if you have, old antidepressants like amitriptyline, nortriptyline, that often can be preventative. So it seems odd to me that you haven't tried anything to either prevent or treat the headaches. So, my advice to you is to start there. I had cluster headaches for about a 5-year period every spring about 15 years ago, and I certainly empathize. It felt like someone was taking a drill to my eye. And, if you haven't experienced it, it's really hard to explain it to somebody that you just cannot function. And so I truly empathize. Honestly, I have no idea why they went away. The only thing that would make them go away for me was hot steam. I'd have to go in the shower, basically scald myself and inhale hot steam, and that would make them go away. Anti-inflammatories worked a little bit. In my case, for whatever reason, they just stopped. I haven't had one in, 10, 12 years, but I certainly empathize. But, you should at least talk to your family doctor about trying the progression of general medications to prevent or contain headaches, while perhaps you wait to see a neurologist. But it's, that's the equivalent of my house is on fire and the fire department say they're going to be there in 2 weeks. The arse is out of her by then. So you need to get onto some sort of plan now, even if it's a fairly basic one. But there's a whole list of migraine treatments. I mean, I work in chronic pain. I don't deal with migraines a lot, but or headaches a lot. But I do some stuff. But there's the really complicated stuff. But there's a basic pathway of where you'd start, and it sounds like you need to get back to that.
Yeah, I'll emphasize that to my family doctor a little bit more thoroughly, and I wonder if there's any point in going to the emergency, even though I'll probably be mostly out of it at that point.
Yeah, I mean, if I saw you in the emerge, I would probably say, look, have you tried X, Y, or Z? And I'd make some suggestions to you. I find it odd that no suggestions have been made to you at this point. But they're not going to probably start you on, top end, third line anti-migraine drugs without, a diagnosis. But even, what to try when it starts. Do you try anti-inflammatories? Are you on a preventative? You need something. So, I mean, if you're not getting that from your family doctor, I mean, it would depend who you see in the emerge, if they're comfortable putting you on either, something to try when you get them or something to prevent. That's sort of the same idea.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. 902-405-6000 is the number. 902-405-6000. As a headache sufferer myself, Dr. John, I get it. They're just, when I get them, I'm done. I have to sit in a dark room.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I get the odd migraine once in a blue moon. I usually get waves and nausea before without a real headache. I got one when I was getting on a plane to Europe, and I think the flight attendant thought I was having a stroke. My daughter was with me, and she just basically told the flight attendant, he gets migraines sometimes, leave him alone, and it went away.
My doctor...
one tip I have for everybody,
sure.
I have this anti-inflammatory powder called Cambia that sometimes is very effective. I think it's diclofenac or indomethacin, I don't remember, but it's one of them in a powder form, so it's meant to work very quickly. So I had one of those with me and decided it'd be a good idea to mix it in Diet Coke, and it foamed up everywhere. So it's the only one I had to drink it, but that made me sick. So don't do that. If you have a migraine, don't mix your anti-inflammatory powder with Diet Coke in the airport.
Doctor probably would recommend against using Diet Coke for any kind of medication anyway, right?
100%.
I got my doctor prescribed me a steroid nasal spray that I take once a day, and it's made a difference. It's made a difference for me anyway.
Yeah, no, look, again, finding the diagnosis and the right option. Sometimes headaches are driven by sinus problems.
Yeah.
The episodic nature of these doesn't sound like it, but, a diagnosis is important, but, trying to find something that's going to help people as well.
We're going to stop and take a break. Dr. John will be here on the other side of it. You're listening to House Calls. The number is 902-405-6000. There are a couple of lines open if you want to get in. Those that are on hold, we'll get to you after the news. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. This is House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis. He's here for the next 30 minutes to answer your medical-related questions. If you have a question for Dr. Gillis, looking for something of a second opinion, another question. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000 is the number. Dr. John will do his very best to answer the question. We'll go right to the phones, Dr. John, and we welcome James to the program. James, how are you?
Fine, thank you.
Your question for Dr. John.
My call.
Absolutely.
A question about immunizations. I think I'm correct in saying that every fall there's a flu shot campaign. This fall, is there going to be a COVID campaign or shots available?
Yeah, so the COVID shots are updated based on what's going on with the virus. So, those who are smarter than I, who watch this stuff, look for changes, new variants, new strains, and as they see them, they update the vaccines. That, was happening in a couple cases. There was a new vaccine out every 3 to 6 months. There may not be a new one right away. It sort of depends on what's happened. Now, typically with the flu, the way it's gone, they adjust it every year. That seems to be the general pattern. COVID may or may not have an update based on the, what's happening out there with the virus. So, the general answer is stay tuned, listen to the public health updates, and, talk to your healthcare professional to see what's happening at the time. But, public health, do a pretty good job of trying to update us. And, definitely when we hear things, we try to put it out there here and however we can, but I haven't heard anything specific recently. If I'm off on that, people usually will tell us, but I haven't heard anything recently about anything new that is imminent.
Okay, that's very helpful. I just wanted to make sure that, so I should be staying tuned, as you say, just watch for news about the COVID. Yeah, just keep your ear to the ground and keep on top of it. Absolutely. Okie doke. Thank you.
Thanks, James. 902-405-6000 is the number. Dr. John, is COVID still showing up in the ER? Are you seeing it? Don't hear about it much these days.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, we're still seeing it. I mean, the problem is you don't know, right?
Right.
What used to be, flagged as potentially COVID positive is now flagged as viral respiratory illness positive because there's so much else out there.
Right.
Influenza, RSV, adenovirus, COVID. It's virus soup, so you don't really know. We see people coming in. The sick ones will test, meaning elderly who are having respiratory issues, dropping oxygen. For the average person, and look, people get very frustrated because they come in, they wait 6-8 hours to be told they have a virus, and there's nothing to do for them. But that's the reality in a lot of these cases. So we are still seeing it. Do I always know that it's COVID? No, because the value of testing in a healthy person who is not in respiratory distress, who does not have a dropped oxygen or other comorbid health conditions, there's no value in it. So we don't do it. But it's definitely still out there. And there are, I was talking to somebody about this last night. I had an interesting conversation with someone I play rugby with who was in the military during the COVID pandemic and, worked in nursing homes and in Ontario. They brought in, the military and just, said, what anybody who didn't believe in COVID at its worst, didn't see what I saw. And, elderly folks dying from it, so we forget a little bit how real it was. And I think we just need to continue to be vigilant. Nobody wants to go back to where we were, but we still recommend that, I talked to someone about this an hour ago, protect yourself against what you can protect yourself from. So if you can get if you need an updated COVID shot, get it. Get a flu shot. If you're eligible and in the higher risk group over 65, get an RSV shot. Protect yourself, a pneumonia vaccine, whatever you can protect yourself against, and in turn protect others. Please try to do so.
902-405-6000 is the number. Let's welcome Tanya to the program. Tanya, how are you?
Hi, very well. Thanks for taking my call. Dr. Gillis, for the past couple years, I've had some discomfort in my left upper abdomen. If it's after I eat, after I drink, and if I press my fingertips underneath my rib cage, that is where the discomfort is. And it bubbles sometimes. It's almost like gas, but it's not gas. I have no idea what it's happening right now as I speak. I've never been pregnant, but maybe it's like a baby kicking. I don't know.
I can't relate to that. I've looked like I've been pregnant a few times, but right now things are looking better, thanks to good life. But you said left side?
Left side, yep, directly under just where your fingers can go curl under the bottom of your rib cage. That's where I feel discomfort.
If it hurts when you push under your rib cage, don't push under your rib cage. That's my first piece of advice.
Okay.
Now, I mean, what's there is your stomach. It's probably some indigestion, whether it's gas, whether it's some acid that's causing it. That's the most likely thing. Your gallbladder's on the other side. Sometimes people, when they're having gallbladder spasm, feel it on the left side, but most times it's on the right side. So, the most likely thing would be gas/acid reflux, some inflammation of your stomach, particularly if it's associated with eating. The less likely thing based on location, but a possibility would be your gallbladder. So you could talk to your doc about that, maybe getting tested for H. pylori, which is the bacteria that can live in our stomach and cause additional acid, and maybe be put on something to reduce acid to see if it helps. If that's not helping, you might need to be worked up for a gallbladder problem.
Okie dokie. I will check with her. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, Tanya.
Bye-bye.
902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. We'll grab a quick email question here, Dr. John, before we move on. This one is from Gloria. It says, I had 2 knee replacements, a right one in 21, a left one in 24. Around April, my knees were great, walking, no pain at all. 2 weeks ago, I woke up with significant pain in my left knee and that I had to use my cane to get around. The pain has recently significantly subsided. She said, I can't think of anything I did to have caused this pain. Is it possible that the high humid weather that we were having would cause the unexpected recent pain in that joint?
Tough question to answer. I mean, certain conditions with a replaced knee are not going to happen, but you still have, the kneecap is, some of the other parts of the knee are still there. They can get inflamed. Sometimes it's, something we did, some movement that we did, the way we slept. Sometimes it's just an inflammatory condition. If it's transient, I wouldn't worry too much about it, as long as it's not swelling or redness or anything. I can't directly think how humidity could contribute to it, but sometimes people get, in hot, humid weather, sometimes people swell. That could have contributed to it. So, again, as long as it's subsided, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but keep an eye on it.
902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000, or if you like, 1-877-801-8255. We have a couple of lines open. We're going to take our last break before the top of the hour. Dr. John will be here until 12 o'clock to answer your questions. Again, 902-405-6000. We're back in minutes. All right, we're back. This is House Calls. He is Dr. John Gillis. The telephone number, 902-405-6000. We've got a couple of callers on the line. Try to get to everybody before the top of the hour. Let us welcome Stan to the program. Stan, how are you?
Not too bad. My question is, I had the RSV vaccination last year. Is that a one-time vaccination, or do I need a booster shot also?
Sorry, can you say that one more time? Just went crackly for a second.
I had the RSV vaccination last year. Now, is that a one-time shot, or do I need a booster shot every year?
No, I'm pretty sure it's a one-time dose. Yeah, you may have to repeat it in a number of years. It's pretty new. I don't know if we have data on how long it lasts, but it's meant to be a single dose.
All right. It's not like the pneumonia one where you get every 10 years then.
Yeah, like I said, it's new. We may get some more data on that in time, but this has only been out for a year or two. So for now, it's a single dose.
All righty. So I'll just have to keep my ear to the ground and find out.
Appreciate it, Stan.
All right. Talk to you later.
902-405-6000. Let's welcome Joe to the program. Joe, how are you?
Hi, Dan. Thank you. I got a question for Dr. John that's really outside the box, and I'll try to be as brief as I can because it's not a direct question you'd ask of a physician, but I'm taking the opportunity while you're on the line. It's more of a micro. Anyway, I wonder, Dr. John, do you have any experience in dealing with people who have had manifestations from transmittable diseases, say from wildlife, more specifically birds and very specifically pigeons, pigeon feces, that sort of thing?
No experience at all. No, I haven't seen that. Have you come across something?
Well, I have, but, I don't want to ramble on, and I was sitting here thinking about how to frame it so it would be more relevant and not so general. But we're having I guess sporadically, but a major bird problem here in Halifax with pigeons and their feces, and some places are worse than others. And I live in a building where it's rife with wildlife, and their feces is all over balconies and walkways. And I know I can go to property management, that's another issue. I've contacted 311 to have a bylaw officer come out and have a look. And I've called the Department of Health, and I may or may not ever hear back from them. It's you can't get a hold of a person anymore when you call. So I left a message with them, and I happened to be listening to the radio, and I thought, well, maybe Dr. John just fortuitously has come across something like that. And if you haven't, I understand.
Yeah, have I seen anyone sick from it? No. Do you read about people, getting sick from exposure to this sort of thing? You do. The general principle is, do your best if it's on your balcony to hose it off, wipe it off, get rid of it, and do the things you're doing to try and optimize conditions. Is it a common problem? No, but if you're inundated by it, it could be. So, I think you have the right approach, but I wouldn't be crazy worried about it.
Well, I am, because I live with it, and there's a nice thick coating of bird feces, and the issue is I reached out the other day, opened my screen door, and took a stiff bristle broom and brushed a little spot off where I step out so I could stand out in it and brush it off. And as I clean the entire balcony, as I brushed it off, a little puff of dust came up, and then I had a light go on over my head thinking, this is all in the indoor-outdoor carpeting on the balcony, and it's a warm, dry day. And if I'm brushing it off, I'm breathing in that stuff, and it's that much of a problem. And I'm a senior, so I'm kind of reaching and grabbing. I don't have a computer or a smartphone, so I'm reaching and grabbing at any source of information I can get. And unfortunately, you came across my radar screen.
All right, Joe, appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Let's go back to the phones and welcome Glenda to the program. Glenda, how are you?
Not too bad. I have a question for the doctor.
Sure.
Don't mind my voice. My voice is always scratchy. I've been having issues with being dizzy, not feeling well. I go outside to do a little bit of work around, and then I feel like I've just got to go lay down. I can't seem to get myself going. So I went to the doctor, and he sent me for an EKG, and they said I have a left bottom branch blockage, I think it was called. So he said it's something to do with the heart shock going different times on each side of your heart, like the electrical impulse, and that they would keep an eye on it and send me next year for another EKG. But I feel so bad all the time. Is that what I should do? Should I wait another year? Because I just never feel well.
Yeah, the bundle branch block is an electrical pattern that we see on ECGs, which, if it were slowing down your heart rate or causing other problems, could contribute to you feeling unwell, but by itself probably isn't the cause. I mean, there's so many reasons why you can feel unwell. I wouldn't hang your hat on that. I would continue to try and investigate what the problem is. And, they can check that in a year, but that doesn't seem to me like that by itself is why you're feeling unwell. That doesn't make any sense to me.
So I should go for a stress test. I had a stress test a few years ago, and it was fine. But, sometimes I feel like I'm a diabetic, so sometimes I feel like my sugars must be really low. But I check my sugars, and they're fine. So whatever this is, those are some of the symptoms that I get, the dizziness in your head and whatever happens, when I get low sugar. But it's not my sugar, because when I check, most of the time my sugars are fine. So I should go back and talk to him and say I need further testing, because I know there's something wrong. If I'm in the middle of the night when I wake up, I just feel like everything is moving, even in the middle of the night when I'm not moving.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, dizziness is a very non-specific symptom. There's a lot of things that can cause it. And, again, a single data point of a bundle branch block, isn't super helpful. A stress test we do to look for signs of cardiac blockage. It sounds like you already had one. Unless you're having new chest pain or shortness of breath, I'm not sure how that would help either. But it sounds like you need some further investigation.
Yeah, I don't have chest pain, but if I try to go for a walk, I feel almost like a heaviness in the center of my chest, not like pain in my heart or anything, but just like a heaviness. I took a couple steps the other day and I could feel this little thump, blub blump in my heart. And when I looked, my heart rate was at 126 just after 2 or 3 steps. But it doesn't always do that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you much more than what I've already told you. I mean, if you're still having symptoms, you need to talk to your doc, and if it's getting worse, you probably need to go to the ER.
Thanks, Glenda. Appreciate the call. Best of luck. Dr. John, that's going to do it for another episode of House Calls. Appreciate your time, sir.
Have a great day.
That is Dr. John Gillis here every Wednesday from 11 until 12 to answer your medical-related questions. We're going to stop down for the news at the top of the hour, and on the other side of it, of course, it's time for the Mid-Week Meltdown, your opportunity to talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, whatever it is on your mind. If you want to join the program, the number is 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. Just a couple of things to pass along here very quickly before we do take that break. I got a note from the provincial government. We talked about the dry conditions with regards to trees and how they're going into this early metamorphosis into fall. Well, it's a result of, as we were told, is a result of it being so dry out there. And we're not the only ones that are suffering from the dryness. We had a conversation, Todd had a conversation yesterday with somebody from the blueberry growers about how the dry, droughty weather is impacting the blueberry crop. Well, the provincial government announcing today that Nova Scotia farmers will have access to additional support to increase their supply of water. The province has committed $475,000 under the On-Farm Water Management Program to support water projects like wells and ponds on farms. The fund will fund all existing eligible applications and enable a second call for applications under the program. The On-Farm Water Management Program is part of the Federal Provincial Sustainable Canadian Agriculture Partnership. And it's a 5-year, $3.5 billion investment by 3 levels of government that aims to strengthen competitiveness, encourage innovation, and build resiliency, yada, yada, yada. But the news nugget there is that if you're part of that program, you're going to get a chance to get some more water onto the farm. I know many of our farmers, I worry about the farmers in Nova Scotia. I worry about the blueberry farmers. And what did they say yesterday? That a blueberry is like 85 to 90% water. And when it's this dry, it for lack of a better term, raisins up, and then they have trouble harvesting it because they use those great big rakes, right, that they harvest it with. So, and I particularly am worried about our cow-calf farmers and our dairy producers in Nova Scotia. If your lawn is anything like their fields, you know how much grass you got this year, and winter's coming. As much as we don't want it to be, it is, and they're going to have to get fed something, right? So keep a farmer in your thoughts as we watch the weather forecast. And just a very sad piece of news to pass along to you here. Not a good way to end the segment, I know, but it's a sad piece of news. HRM says that the Clam Harbor Beach Sandcastle competition, if you've never been to this thing, it's world class anyway, has been canceled for the year. The event was supposed to take place this Sunday. HRM said in a release that residents' safety in is the municipality's top priority. The event typically attracts 10,000 people to that area, and it's accessible only by a single-lane road. Municipal staff have determined that with these continued dry conditions and no immediate rain in the forecast, the risk's too high to safely move forward for the event. So the Clam Harbor Beach Sandcastle competition is closed, partially in accordance with the province's restriction on travel and activities in the woods. So we're going to have to wait till next year. Put it on your calendar, because I went there as a skeptic and I came back from there as a believer. There are some very talented people that take part in that competition every year, and I know they'll be disappointed that it's been canceled. We're going to stop. We're going to get updated from the news from Blake as we move forward, and on the other side of it, we're going to open up the telephone lines. In fact, they're open now. It's time for the Midweek Meltdown. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. Or if you like, 1-877-801-8255. The open hour after the news. Welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It's time now for the Midweek Meltdown. The lines are open. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. And my goodness, there is no shortage of things to talk about these days, is there? It was just off the top of the program, I was chatting with you all about some of the things I've noted as of late with regional council. I know that all the debate recently has been centered on transportation and on bike lanes and on and then fire bans and those kind of things. But interesting coverage if you've read today's paper or have been following this whole debate on the province rejecting the regional plan and sending it back to council. They had a long debate on it yesterday. I think a good chunk of because it was behind closed doors and in camera, there was and I'm putting quotes around this, an intergovernmental item that they discussed. They had a long session they've had a number of long sessions of in-camera meetings as of late at City Council. And then in open council, it seemed to me, and maybe I'm off the mark, but it seemed to me like they're still kind of trying to figure out why the province said that they couldn't go ahead with their regional plan. The mayor quoted, I think it's on the CBC this morning, saying that it's put some building projects now on hiatus because they had to have some exemptions under the new plan, and because the new plan isn't there and it's the old plan, that the contractors don't know what to do. And it seemed that some of the discussion on that last night at council just was more about them still being mad that the province did what they did. I think Sam Austin said that they threw the baby out with the bathwater. And then another section of City Council last night, they were discussing plans for the Wanderers grounds. And the long-term plan for that. And, of course, when that comes up, there's a debate about what to do with and I'm putting quotations around this, the temporary stadium at the Wanderers grounds. It doesn't look very temporary to me, but it is. It's still technically temporary, and that'll be part of the discussion as well. I'm curious to what your thoughts are on the Wanderers grounds and what we should do with that chunk of land. There's an awful lot of discussion about how it's going to be a community space, and I sometimes struggle to figure out what and how that's going to be a community space. If it's an enclosed stadium, I know there's been talk about youth groups and schools playing sports on that facility. Tony Mancini yesterday, as part of his discussion on it, said that, well, it's going to get busy, so it'll have to be artificial turf. I stand to be corrected here, but I don't know if the Premier League that the Wanderers play in, or where the league that the Tides play in, if that's a thing, because I know in certain soccer leagues they want natural grass, and if it's natural grass, they're not going to let anybody on that turf because it has to be pristine. It'll get torn. It's like you're going to play football on it, or even high school soccer. So lots of questions out there, right? The idea that we have a purpose stadium. And I know we get caught up in how big is this thing? 25,000 seats or 10,000 seats or whatever it is. But having a purpose-built stadium in downtown Halifax, I know is a cause for concern for some. Others think that it's a great idea. The Wanderers has certainly been a success. I know the Tides are still really new, but there is some interest in the women's soccer. But is that the right spot? Is that what that spot was intended for? That the Wanderers grounds is part of the Common, which we know was gifted to the people of Halifax and has been infringed upon in bits and pieces since that happened. And is this another one of those infringements? Or is this something that can be a really big benefit to the city? 902-405-6000 is the number, 902-405-6000. Another thing I'd like you to think about today, as the show got on the air, I got some new data today on home prices in HRM. It's a home affordability report. It's from ratehub.ca, I think, and it looks at the 13 major cities in Canada, and the good news out of the thing is Halifax saw, according to this data, about almost a $12,000 drop in home prices between June and July. I guess it's probably not a good idea if you own a home, but if you're looking for them, that's good news. Mortgage payments dropped in HRM, according to this, by $83, and income required to buy a home dropped by about just over $3,000. But Halifax still has one of the most expensive real estate markets in the country, behind Calgary and Vancouver and Toronto and Hamilton, of all places in the world. But all of that being said, I don't know. I belong to this group. It's a here and now group. It's a group of photographers that take pictures of old buildings and old neighborhoods in communities, and they take a picture, and then they take the picture today. So it's I don't know, let's just pick a date out of the air, 1906 or 1935 or 1949, and then they take a 2025 picture and kind of put it as a before and after, and you can see the change. But when I go onto those sites and I think back and I look at things in the 40s and the 50s and even into the 60s and maybe even the 70s, I wonder where we went wrong. And the reason why I say that is that it used to be able to, that a person working in a place like Halifax could afford to buy a place in Halifax. You used to be able to do it on one income, but that we know those days are over. But even on two incomes now, according to these numbers, you need an income of $120,800. So almost $120 for easy math, $121,000 in order to pass the stress test and a mortgage rate at 4% to be able to buy the average home price in HRM. And just think about that for a minute. $121,000 is what you need as an annual salary, as a household salary, in order to be able to purchase a home. And I'm going to suggest that that's probably at the low end, and I think you might be a little house poor if you do that. But that's what the numbers say. $121,000. So gone are the days where a person making an average income in HRM can or pretty much anywhere in the country, to be honest, can afford to buy a home in the community where they work. We can't even buy homes on the outskirts anymore at that price. So where did we go wrong? When did it happen? And why did it happen? Was it because the banks started offering money, more accessible, lower interest rates? Was it greed? What happened? It used to be that a person could get a job, do their Monday to Friday, their 9 to 5, and they could afford to be able to live in the community where they work. Now that is it's not even a reality anymore. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. We're going to take a break. The open hour continues on the other side. You're listening to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Holstrand. Back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Dan Holstrand in with you here. This is the Mid-Week Meltdown. The lines are open, 902, and there's a number of them if you're looking to get on. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000, or if you like, 1-877-801-8255. I'm curious as to your thoughts on a couple of things. One, debate around the council table last night about what to do with the Wanderers grounds and that part of the Halifax Common. There, of course, is a proposal in the works to make that temporary stadium on that site a permanent fixture. I wonder if that is something that you think is smart. There's a couple of different angles on that. One, it seems that the Halifax Wanderers and by extension the Halifax Tides have had some success, or having good success in filling that place when they come to town. And I know that Derek Martin of the Wanderers has a proposal to turn that into a permanent facility from its temporary status. And my question to you, is that a good use of that public land at the Wanderers grounds? And my other question is, where did we go wrong when it comes to housing? It wasn't that long ago that somebody or a family, we'll say, two-income family that had a job were able to afford to live in the community that they worked in. Now, that's not the case. New data shows that it would need a household income of $121,000 just to make that mortgage payment. And by the way, the average house price in Halifax, according to this, in July of 2025, is $558,000, $559,000 for easy math, and a 10% down payment, according to this. Who's got that kind of money in the bank? 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Let's go to the phone lines and welcome Mike to the program. Mike, how are you?
I'm good, boy. How are you today?
I'm not too bad. What's on your mind?
Well, you know what? As far as city council goes, I personally think we need to sweep them, pretty much all of them, because they're not effective, and the goings on between them and stuff is just ridiculous. But anyway, I think they need to start focusing on what we need in this city, and things like roads being repaired, not patched, and start focusing on the homelessness and what they can do on their end as far as municipal government. But anyway, they just seem so focused on this whole bicycle lanes, and they get their claws into something and they won't let it go. But about the housing and stuff, Dan, I remember younger years, and my mother, when all this women's lib and all that stuff started coming around, And she was saying one day that women were being forced out of the homes by the whole movement, and being told that being a mother and a home care person and stuff wasn't real. It wasn't a job. It wasn't, satisfactory. There was more out there for you to get. And as I watched the decades go by, Dan, when you look at, say, a guy going to a new hockey team or joining a team,
right?
You always hear them saying they got a system. And I find that the governments today on all three levels, it's like when you join up on that particular group, it's like you either jump into their system or you go away. And I think that when I was out in Vancouver, and you always hear like our city councils and our provincial guys talking about Toronto and Vancouver and Montreal, and you know what, Halifax was never meant to be any of that. And they started making moves like bringing in tens of thousands of people to populate the place when they didn't even have the infrastructure, and not realizing the gem that we had here in, Halifax was one of the most beautiful cities to live in, to grow up in. You had everything you needed. Yeah, we didn't have the big fancy concerts and the big stars. We didn't have, the sports teams and stuff. But we had what we needed for a family to grow up and have a backyard. Nowadays, we're calling housing apartment buildings.
Right.
That's not a housing for a family. Kids need a backyard and a space to go play, and anyway, Dan, that's kind of what I think is that there's been, for decades now, there's been a plan to, just start taking on and make this a big, important city. And it's like every place doesn't have to be that. You got your big cities. If you want to live that style, go there. Anyway, that's kind of my piece, buddy.
Appreciate it, Mike. Have a good one. 902-405-6000. It's 902-405-6000. Let's welcome George to the program. George, how are you?
Morning there. How you doing there?
Not too bad. What's on your mind?
Well, as a non-resident of HRM, every time I listen to the show regular, and I call in occasionally.
Okay.
But I'm finding that Halifax Council, like listening to your show, is totally dysfunctional. And people, the callers, saying how stupid, like the stupid things that they're doing, especially like a caller yesterday from Beaver Bank, say, the $100 million for I'll call them grape lanes, the grape lanes. That's what I think they are.
Right.
They need water out in their community, and council's going ahead with $100 million on grape lanes. No, nobody wants them, as far as I can tell. And I've been to Halifax. I go up there occasionally. I don't see thousands of bikes using anything up in Halifax. You see the odd one. I don't know where Sean Cleary's getting his facts at. I really don't. I can't imagine where he's getting them, because I don't believe it. I mean, the times I do go to Halifax, I don't see thousands of bikes on the road. I never do. Do you?
No, not often. But then again,
No,
I'm inside most of the time, right? So that's what he told me anyway.
But I mean, we're talking thousands.
Right.
Like everybody would notice thousands of bikes.
Yep.
But I don't see it. Never when I'm up there. Like I say, see the odd one.
Yes, sir.
But not thousands. But anyways, as an outsider listening in, like, I just think Halifax Council is like in a bad spot, because you reach callers, Dan, like all over the province. They're calling you from down in Lunenburg, Bridgewater.
Yes, sir.
Everybody hears it, and I'm just thinking, man, I'm glad I don't have to put up with a council like that. I'm just glad, as an outsider listening. What a gong show, man!
George,
it's very bad. What?
Appreciate your call, sir. I'm just out of time.
All right, thanks, sir.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. There's A number of lines open if you want to get in. You can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about, but a couple of questions I'm more curious about. One, the Wanderers grounds. What do we do with that chunk of property? Do we convert it into a permanent stadium? Do we leave it as a temporary stadium? What are your thoughts on it? And two, where did we go wrong with housing? It wasn't that long ago that you could work in a community and afford to buy a house there. That is not the case anymore for most. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. The open hour continues after the news. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. This is the Mid-Week Meltdown. The telephone number is 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. Or, if you like, 1-877-801-8255. Lots of open lines if you want to get in on the discussion. A couple of things that we're kicking around today. One is the Wanderers grounds. Now, City Council last night voted to have a study done on the Wanderers ground in general, looking at uses and different things that we can do with it. And, of course, there's a pretty big tenant on there right now. That is the temporary, quotation marks, stadium around the Wanderers grounds where the Halifax Wanderers and the Halifax Tides currently call home. Should there be a permanent stadium there? I heard some of the discussion from council last night suggesting that it would be an economic benefit to have that facility there on a full-time basis because you need to have a stadium in a vibrant core so that you get the spin-offs and the money and all of that things that we always talk about. But the other side of that coin is that piece of property is and is supposed to be used as a public space. There seems to be some indication that any kind of facilities built on the Wanderers ground would be for public use, but I'll argue that point, that if it does become a permanent stadium and they have a manicured pitch in there, I don't think that they're going to have high school kids running around tearing that up, but maybe I'm wrong. 902-405-6000 is the number on that. And also, I'm asking questions about the affordability of housing, and that because new numbers out today suggesting that it costs about $121,000 $121,000 of income you need in order to buy the average house here in Halifax, not just on the peninsula. That's Halifax as a whole. I struggle to think that many that are listening to this program right now would be able to afford a new mortgage on that. Again, maybe I'm wrong. Where did we go wrong? I got an email from Lee during the break, and it said, Dan, you're overthinking this. Supply and demand is the cause. Too many people, too few services, too little housing drove up the demand and cost. Market Economics 101. Well, most of the media didn't put the blame where it belonged, and he said immigration because they were too cozy with the Liberal government in their handouts. Well, I don't buy the last part of that, but it does certainly explain some of the increase in prices. But I'll take it one step further, Lee. I will suggest that we were buying houses, particularly during the pandemic, at hundreds of thousands more than they should have been. And where does that fall? Does that fall on a broken immigration system? Does that fall on people trying to wring every last dollar out of the property that they own? Or was that people trying to outbid somebody else so they can say they owned a house? There's lots of blame to go around there, isn't there? 902-405-6000 is the number. Let's go back to the phones. We welcome Derek to the program. Derek, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
What's on your mind?
Regarding the housing issue, what I've noticed since 2020, I live in a small town, Liverpool, yep. And the cost of a house has gone dramatically up. Just so happens that in 2020, I had to, I didn't initiate, but I began a divorce process. So I had to get the house appraised, and my little 2-bedroom, full basement house was $48,000 at that time. I just had to get it appraised again, Now it's up to 125. The issue I see is over these past few years, and when I say immigration, I mean Canadian immigration, people from other provinces that already had, that, they were selling their BC or Ontario property for, millions.
And coming here because they could work from home. Absolutely.
And also buy a house for a fraction of the cost that it would cost them to buy another house in the same province.
Yeah.
One neat story I've got for you. I did meet a couple from Ontario, and he was very interested in going lobster fishing with me and my dad. So we took him out, and then he invited me to dinner. And what I found interesting about that dinner was his wife was telling me about the story of buying the house that they were in, and she was just shopping online out in BC, and she came across the house that they bought, and she said, "Oh my goodness, it was only $1.4 million."
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so they sold their 2 bakery businesses and their house that they had in Sudbury, BC, and they came here. And now, especially in Liverpool, I'm starting to call it Little Ontario, because 5 years ago I knew everybody in Liverpool. If I didn't know you by name, I knew what family you were from.
Right. Now
I know absolutely nobody. I'm a stranger in my own town. And everybody's from, I'm going to say 90% are from Ontario. But that also, I'm not purporting that anybody has the right to live wherever they want to on Earth. And I don't think the immigration rollout from the feds was very effective, and that's why you're seeing rising rent costs, because there's just too many people, especially in a small town, and there's not enough houses or apartments or anything. And also to complement that, you're seeing rental construction. They're building these huge houses or apartment buildings, but they're being built by corporations, people that actually go around buying land and investing. Investment's great; it creates jobs, but there just isn't enough room. But I still, as far as the housing cost, it's because people were able to get rid of their multi-million-dollar homes and businesses in places like BC and Ontario and come here and retire. And as you mentioned, they could still make a living and afford what their living costs were or are.
Derek, appreciate it, sir.
All right.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. Let's welcome Edward to the show. Edward, how are you?
Hi, Dan.
What's on your mind?
Hi, Dan. You hear me?
I do. Loud and clear, sir.
Oh, yeah. Dan the man. You have a nice radio voice, by the way.
Thanks.
I want to compliment.
It's better than I have a perfect face for radio, too.
Yeah, you had a good insight on the Wanderers, and I'll give you my take, what I think.
Sure.
It's like you have to have the right location, because we have to put emphasis on the stadium here. But you have the Lancers and you have the long bowling.
Yep.
And basically it's a stadium for Derek Martin. And I got nothing against Derek Martin and the Wanderers. I've been to his games, but he would never want a CFL if they could even build something there, which they can't. 24,000. And if you and I owned a CFL team, you want a Grey Cup game, because every owner has a Grey Cup game,
right.
And you could never expand that to 30,000 plus for a Grey Cup game. So Henschbe's right. It's not an ideal situation for a stadium. And to say that, maybe down the road, because the city's growing, one of the councillors said, because I watched it, and I agree with you, it's not the greatest watch. She says, we'll have a CFL stadium, a CFL team. When the city's growing, what do you mean? It's 550,000 people. Like, here's my take on it.
Sure.
$92,000 for a stadium there. That's what they're saying it will cost. And that's only 7,100 to 8,500 seats. And it's a prefab. It's not even they say permanent, but it's a modular.
Yep.
And when the Metro Center is 40 years old, Dan, and it seats 11,000. Like, that doesn't, and it's an indoor facility. This is an outdoor facility. Personally, I think this is all politics. And it's basically, I hate to say it, a Derek Martin special. It is. It's for Derek Martin. And by the way, one other thing I want to say, CPL is not in good shape. Winnipeg's going to fold. They're saying next year they're going to fold. York was up for sale. Edmonton folded. Yes, Halifax does well, but the league is into some shaky grounds financially. And the CFL has been around for over 100 years. Do you imagine a Grey Cup game in Halifax? It would sell out 3 times. This doesn't make any sense, other than it's a Derek Martin special. I just want your take on it.
Well, Edward, I think when you're talking about it being politics, I think you're right. I think that the previous iteration of council wore the fact that on the debate over that whole CFL stadium, when we were going to build it over at at the other side of the harbor, and that just ended up. And there's still lots of questions about the people's money, that deposit they put down that nobody's got back. I think that you would have to show me a successful CFL model in order for me to support that. I think that they mentioned Montreal last night. But that's a university stadium, so I just don't think there's an appetite from the taxpayer of Halifax to spend that kind of money on that size of stadium. I just wonder if the Wanderers grounds is being used as the Wanderers grounds should be used. It's a public spot. $92 million for 80,000 for 8,000 seats for Derek Martin, his soccer team. That's insane. Like, they have water. They don't even water sewer there. Yeah, I know. It's all porta potties. I hear you. There's no infrastructure there, so it's not it's basically for his soccer team. That's not a stadium per se. That's basically a soccer stadium for the size that he wants in that location for him. Yeah. Like Halifax, you just can't take Halifax. You have to have the whole area. Like the Valley. I went to the Touchdown Atlantic in Wolfville. It was unbelievable. I went to St. Mary's. I've been to 12 Grey Cup games. Right. Like, the CFL would be huge here. If you had Atlantic Schooners, you imagine a Labor Day Classic called the Lobster Bowl between the BC Lions and the Atlantic Schooners. It'd be like 50 times more popular than a CPL Premier Derek's soccer team. 50 times. All right, Edward. Appreciate it, sir. Okay, thank you. 902-405-6000, 902-405-6000. The open hour continues on the other side of the break. All right, welcome back to the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand in for Todd today. Todd will be back in the big chair tomorrow. We've got a few minutes left here in the open hour. Try to get to as many calls as I can. I was watching the Halifax Regional Council meeting yesterday afternoon live, and as I was waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for them to finish their in-camera session, I would think of one person who was probably just as perturbed as I was, and that was Gloria McCluskey, and she joins me on the phone this morning. Gloria, how are you?
I'm great, Dan. How are you?
Thanks
for taking my call.
For sure. Does it not seem to you, maybe I'm out to lunch,
I've never seen such long in-camera meetings.
Thank you. I feel better now, because my goodness, they go on forever.
Ever. I mean, that's 2 weeks in a row now.
Yeah.
But anyway, I stayed around and I watched last evening.
Yeah, so did I.
And I just want to speak about the plan.
Sure, the regional plan.
Dan, the government, the Department of Municipal Affairs, all the plans have to go there for approval. So they know when they write the plan and send it that they could be faced with many changes.
Mm-hmm.
So a 190-page plan, and you don't expect changes. The changes were because, and I understand the development group worked along with the province looking through this plan, because they're the developers. They know, what we need to get more housing. And more housing is the big thing today, Dan.
Right.
Anyway, they didn't think that there was enough as of right development where you can just build and follow the regulations, of course. They had electric chargers for electric cars in the basement of apartment buildings, knowing that they cause fires. They had a lot of spaces for electric cars in the parking lots, which they don't feel are necessary. I don't feel are necessary. I rarely see an electric car. And they just felt that there wasn't enough, and the setback was 30 meters instead of 20, and all of these things. And I don't know why you would take offense, really, to that. I know it was a lot of work, and they put a lot of effort into it. But that's what happens. That's life. You do things, and you're told to change it, and you go ahead and change it. And Sam Austin is always negative about everything the government does. And, it should have been thrown out with the bathwater. Well, after watching council all these weeks, I'm about to think that a lot of them should have been thrown out with the bathwater because they're being totally dysfunctional. I want to leave that for a minute and go to something else They did last night. They've approved $656, something like that, $1,000 to redesign Slater Street and coming up through the Commons so that cyclists could not be on their way to Burnside Park, the best industrial park this side of Montreal, or at least it always was, created by Dartmouth, where thousands of people work with few amenities, no sidewalks in many of the streets, and very poor bus service. And we want to spend this much money to get cyclists up there.
Makes me wonder why you want to cycle into Burnside, to be honest.
Exactly. You don't even want to drive in there.
Right.
It is so busy.
It is. It's busy, and there's trucks and all of the, it's an industrial parking.
Oh, a lot of big trucks.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, I watch it all, and when I speak, Dan, I know of what I speak because I've watched them.
Absolutely. Gloria, appreciate it. Have a fantastic day.
And you also.
902-405-6000. That's 902-405-6000. It just seems like they're hours and hours and hours of in-camera meetings. And as I said off the top, I understand it. I get it. There's a necessity for council to discuss sensitive items, right? Like personnel issues and contracts and that kind of thing. But really? That long? Maybe I'm off the mark. 902-405-6000. We welcome Philip to the program. Philip, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
What's on your mind?
I just want to talk about health care for a moment.
Sure.
One of the premier, as we all know, at the time of election there, his first term there, he promised to fix health care, and I'm not this articulate, but I'm going to try to explain this briefly as I can. You go to the emergency department at the infirmary, and you go there, most people, because they're hurting, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're suffering or for one reason or another. So you go there, and you wait and wait and wait for anywhere from 6 to 20 hours sometimes, I guess, from what I've been seen and witnessed, because I go there quite often myself because of my poor health. Now, I was there this past Saturday, and at 6 o'clock in the morning I arrived, and there were 75 people there waiting to see a doctor. So I'm talking to the nurse there, and she tells me that there's only one doctor working. And so I'm sitting there for 6 hours suffering, and the nurses are even complaining about themselves and you can see it, that they're frustrated and everything else, and they have to deal with the public. My point being, I guess, is that at the time, a lot of the times they only have one doctor working, and that's why you have these long wait times. So, it's to the point where you might as well stay home and suffer at home than sit there for 6 or 10 hours or whatever and suffer there while you wait to see a doctor. I think, to have one doctor working, is it's not good. And I just want to express my dissatisfaction. And I'm not blaming the staff. I'm blaming the government. They got to do something to help people at that emergency department, because waiting there, suffering for one thing or another, it's something that has to be fixed. They claim they have bringing in new doctors all the time and nurses and all that, but they're not there. You can tell that it's a shortage of the nurses and the doctors, etc. So anyway, the point being, like I said before, is that maybe they should pay more attention instead of bragging about all these nurses and doctors that they're hiring. And I'm asking, well, maybe put a few of them in the emergency department. Because it's just so frustrating, and when you're sitting there and you're hurting and there's nothing you can do, people are crying. Older people like myself are just in agony, but nothing seems to change. And I've been there probably 6 times over the last 3 or 4 months, and it's the same experience over and over again. I've waited as long. One time I waited even 30 hours to see a doctor.
Wow.
So.
Anyway, Phil, appreciate you sharing that with us. Hope you have a fantastic day, and I thank every one of you for spending time with us today on the program and dialing the numbers and joining the show. You make my day when you do it. Thanks to Vanessa Vananez on the other side of the glass. Todd's back in the big chair tomorrow. Look forward to listening to him and listening to the open hour. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you when we see you, and remember, be kind to one another.